I'm Sindisiwe Mashele from the DFFE team under the Climate Change Monitoring, Mitigation and Specialist Monitoring Services within the department. Our city is responsible for climate change mitigation in the country as well as M&E. So I'm pleased to welcome you all in this Inception meeting for the ICAT SA project. I'm just going to switch off my camera because I was having issues with the internet so that we don't have issues with connectivity. So this is a significant initiative aimed at strengthening climate action transparency and effectiveness in South Africa. As you may be aware, our collaboration on this initiative is with ICAT, the Climate Action Transparency Initiative, and the World Resource Institute, and it represents a crucial step in our national efforts to combat climate change. And this project was initially introduced in the working group. So today's meeting is to initiate the project with the provinces that are present, and also to discuss the work plan for the project. So this project is not merely about statistics or framework. It is about shaping a sustainable future for us as a country. Through our partnership with ICAT and WRI, we are embarking on a journey to empower our provinces as well as municipality to play a pivotal role in our collective climate mitigation efforts, to ensure that we establish robust monitoring and evaluation frameworks for setting ambitious emission targets. Our aim is to clearly align our actions with our international commitments under the Paris Agreement, and to pave a way for us as a country as well as globally to a low carbon climate resilient future. So through this meeting, we'll explore the comprehensive scope of the project, which includes the capacity building programs that are planned. And also in the work plan, we'll also discuss the trained workshop and the knowledge sharing initiatives that will be tailored specific to our provinces and municipalities. And we'll also go into the climate change bill and how it mandates the establishment of provincial and municipal forums to coordinate our subnational climate change response effectively. And moreover, we'll discuss the practical activities outlined under the project, as I have indicated, in terms of the training sessions that will be had, and also the exercises that are planned for us to be able to assess our climate action impacts and the development of emission targets. So this training was well thought through to ensure that it is designed to enhance our institutional and technical capabilities to ensure that we are equipped to meet our NDC commitments and to comply with the requirements of the Paris Agreement as a country. So as we are about to start this meeting, it is imperative that we maintain open communication and also share insights as provinces are at different level of capacities in terms of climate change mitigation planning and tracking, and to also foster collaboration across all levels of government and with our esteemed partners, which is ICAT and WRI. So together we have an opportunity to drive meaningful change within the country not only in our country, but also in the global space as well. So in front of you, we have the agenda that is planned for today, and I hope that we engage in fruitful discussion.
Transport. Yeah.
Sorry about that. I see there was someone who was unmuted. So in front of you, we have the agenda. And in attendance today, we have the colleagues from the department who will be actively involved in this project, as well as our service provider, which is Gondwana Environmental Services, that will be assisting us in the implementation of this project, as well as our sponsors for this project. Looking at the number of people that are in the meeting, I think it is possible for us to go through just a brief round of introductions so that we know exactly who's in the meeting. And also if all the provinces are represented. So I would like to request that the DFFE team introduces themselves first. So I see on my screen the first person that I see is Adele. Can you please introduce yourself?
Good morning, colleagues. My name is Adele Mangani from the DFFE, and I'm part of the GSG Inventory and Systems team. Thank you.
Next is Hendrik.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Hendrik Lowe from the DFFE from the inventory team.
And next is Kodani.
Good morning, colleagues. My name is Kodani Mabungu. I'm from the DFFE under the Directorate Climate Change Research and Analysis.
And Lungile.
Good morning, colleagues. I'm Lungile Moyo from the Research and Analysis team. Thanks.
And Malibu.
Good morning, colleagues. I'm Malebo Seletse. I'm from the Climate Change Research and Analysis team. Thank you.
And Rumbi, followed by Mr. Mabena.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Rubita Mundu from the GSG Inventory and Systems team.
Thank you very much, Mr. Marcelo. Good morning, colleagues. My name is Samuel Mabena. I'm also part of the DFFD team from the Chief Directorate Climate Change Mitigation and Specialist Monitoring Services. Thank you.
Thank you. And Sbusiso, followed by Tando.
Good morning, colleagues. My name is Bu Siso Malo, also in the mitigation and specialized monitoring team, supporting work around climate finance, tracking, and just transition. Thank you.
Okay, and then I see we have also someone from the ICAT team, Mr. Oleg. Can you please introduce yourself?
Good morning, colleagues. I hope you can see me and hear me well. My name is Oleg Bulani. I'm a senior program manager at the ICAT Secretariat, and I'm running the country team that's responsible for all the country projects that ICAT is supported globally. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And also the Gondwana team to please introduce themselves. I'll rely on you, Martin, to coordinate this.
Thank you, Cindy. My name is Martin van Nierop from Gondwana Environmental Solutions. We've been appointed as the consultant to do the project, and I'm joined on the line today by Luann.
Yes, good morning, everybody. My name is Luann Stevens. I'm part of the Gondwana team, and we will be working. My expertise is mostly on agriculture and land use, but we'll be working on the training of the aggregation tool as well as the greenhouse gas inventory training. So, thanks.
Brett?
Morning, everybody. My name is Brett Byrne. I'm part of the Gondwana team as well. I've worked on inventories across all the sector department that Luann does, so energy, industry, waste, transport. And I'll be part of the training on the inventory and the trainings as well, supporting you.
Leng, followed by Daniela.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Feleng Litlaila. I am also part of the Gondwana team and will be assisting with the project.
Good morning. I am Daniela Dioger. I'm an environmental consultant at Gondwana, and I'll also be working on the project.
That's my whole team, Cindy, present today.
Okay, thank you so much, Martin. And I think then this is a good time for the province's officials to, and also municipal officials that are in attendance to introduce themselves. So I see the first person on my side is Adrian. Can you please come in and introduce yourself?
Good morning, colleagues. My name is Adrian van Straten. I'm from the Northwest Department of Economic Development, Environment, Conservation and Tourism. I'm attached to the Directorate Environmental Policy, Planning and Coordination. Thank you.
Thank you. And next person is Feleng.
Leng has already introduced herself.
Oh,
She's part of our
already
team.
introduced themselves. I think the next person is Aristotle. I'm sorry if I have mispronounced your name.
That's fine. It's Ari. It's Ari Capsasideris from the Gauteng Department of Agriculture, Rural Development and Environment. I'm with the Environmental Policy Planning Coordination, working in climate change mitigation. Thank you.
Thank you. And the next person is Mbali.
Okay.
Yes.
Good morning, colleagues. My name is Mbali Goke. I'm from the KZN Department of Economic Development, Tourism, and Environmental Affairs. I have joined with 2 gadgets because my laptop doesn't have sound, but I need the screen on it, so I believe I appear twice on your side. Thanks.
Thank you. And the next person is Mpolo King. If you can please come in and introduce yourself. Okay, I cannot hear anything on my side. I don't know if it's my issue or not.
I can't hear anything either.
Okay, it's fine. Then we'll move on to the next person. If you can please put your details on the chat, Polokeng, because we cannot hear you. The next person is Noloyiso.
Good morning, Noloyiso Walingo from KwaZulu-Natal Department of Economic Development, Tourism and Environmental Affairs, Climate Change, Environmental Planning, Governance and Information Management. Thank you.
Thank you. And the next person is Pomoto.
Hello, good morning, everyone. My name is, My name is Pumzoti Bafuni. I'm from LEADET, responsible for equality and climate change. Thank you.
Thank you. And the next person is Rio Kiditswe. I'm sorry for mispronouncing your name. Okay, I'm not sure if he or she can hear us, but can you please put your details on the chat if you cannot be able to unmute. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, colleagues. I think everyone in the room has introduced themselves. Or I think we have, I think everyone in the room has introduced themselves, except for Tulisile. Tulisile, can you please come in and introduce yourself?
Morning, colleagues. My name is Tulisile Mukoka from Mpumalanga Department of Agriculture, Rural Development, Land and Environmental Affairs, with environmental policy planning and coordination, and also climate change coordination in the province. Thank you.
Thank you. I see one other person that didn't introduce themselves from the DFFE team. Tula, you can come in and introduce yourself.
Greetings, colleagues. I'm sorry, I'm just joining in Gondwana's desktop. I have a problem with the location, but my name is Tulasizo Masugu. I'm also part of the DFF team. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Tula. Thank you so much, colleagues, for the introductions. I see that 5 of the provinces are represented in this meeting, and I think then we can proceed. So we have the agenda in front of us. The first item that we're going to go through is the climate change bill and the implications for provinces and municipalities. And also within that presentation, we'll also provide a background in terms of the, I see a colleague from the Free State is in the meeting as well. Thank you so much. And also provide a background in terms of the importance of provincial GHG inventories. This was supposed to be separate presentations, but unfortunately our CD could not join us to provide an update on the climate change bill and also the context in terms of provinces and municipalities. So I will provide both presentations. And then we'll go to the provincial and LG targets setting presentation process from Mr. Mabena, and also then the climate change MRV. Then we'll hand over then to, after the break, Mr. Mabena will take us through the overview of the project, and also there will be introduction from ICAT, and also there will be a representative from our implementation partner, which is WRI, but I couldn't see anyone. I don't see anyone at the moment in the meeting, so I'm hoping they'll be able to join us for this.
They have sent us a message, a recorded message, Cindy, which we will play at the time.
Okay. Then we'll hand over to our service provider to take us through the work plan. I'll have to leave the meeting probably at 11:30, so I'll hand over the chairing responsibilities to Mr. Mabena. So yeah, so that's the agenda before us, and that's the items that we're going to go through. So I'm going to start with the first presentation. Can I please share my presentation on my side, Martin?
I've stopped sharing, so you should be able to share, Cindy.
Please, anyone confirm if you can see the presentation?
Yes, it's visible.
Okay, I'm not gonna be able to see hands while I'm presenting, so I would like to request assistance from the Gondwana team to manage that. And also, you are free to raise hands during the presentation and ask questions. And also, the chat I'm sure is also open, so you can also put your questions on the chat. So my presentation will be looking at the climate change bill, focusing mostly on the roles for provinces and municipalities. I'll first go through the climate change bill and where it is in terms of the parliamentary process. And then just to remind ourselves, just go through the purpose of the bill in the context of this capacity building that is planned for provinces and municipalities. And also look at the policy alignment and what is the role for provinces and municipalities. And also look at the climate change, in terms of climate change response, what is the role for provinces and municipalities. And the last slide will look at all the instruments and in terms of how they are linked to ensure that all of us are contributing towards implementation of the climate change bill, and also outline the other instruments that are in place to ensure that the requirements and the objectives of the bill are met. So as you all may be aware, that we reached a significant milestone in October 2023 when the National Assembly passed the climate change bill. So now the bill is with the National Council of Provinces for additional scrutiny, and eventually it will be enacted into an act. So what is happening right now, we are supporting the provinces in terms of the consultations that are required to happen now with the public. We've had briefing sessions with some of the provinces, I think 5 of the provinces now, and that is currently underway in terms of the process and what is happening with the bill. So I just thought I should also include this slide in this presentation, because to remind ourselves what we are trying to achieve with the climate change bill. So the purpose of the bill is to enable the development of an effective national climate change response and long-term just transition to a low-carbon economy and climate resilient economy and society for South Africa in the context of sustainable development. I think that statement shows that everyone has a role to play in terms of the climate change response and the programs that need to be put in place to ensure that we are transitioning to a low carbon economy, and also ensuring that in the transitioning process, we consider just transition. So the next slide, I will go through the policy alignment and institutional arrangements, focusing only on the clauses that are specific to provinces, because the bill has a lot of instruments that need to be implemented, but the focus on the province on this presentation is looking at the role of provinces. So in terms of institutional arrangements, the bill states that every previous intergovernmental framework established in terms of the intergovernmental relations framework will serve as a provincial forum on climate change, as well as every district intergovernmental forum established in terms of Section 24 will also serve as a municipal forum on climate change. And also municipalities, the municipal forum on climate change, as well as the provincial forum on climate change, may establish a technical support structure in terms of Section 30 if there is a need for a formal technical support structure to the provincial forum or the district intergovernmental forum. So I've also included the roles of what the Provincial Forum is expected to carry out in terms of the climate change bill. So the role of the forum is to coordinate climate change response actions in the relevant province in accordance with the Act. And also the other role is reporting, providing a report to the President's Coordinating Council in terms of Section 20A, in terms of the intergovernmental relations framework. So that is the role of the Provincial Forum in terms of, putting actions in place to respond to climate change. Similarly, the Municipal Forum as well. Responsibility is to coordinate climate change response at municipality level for those activities where the municipality has operational control in accordance with the Act, and also provide a report on such action to the relevant provincial forum on climate change. The next slide, I will go through the what municipalities and provinces need to put in place in terms of climate change response. And also just to highlight that this section covers both adaptation and mitigation. But then the focus of today's discussion is basically solely on mitigation. But I've included these roles in terms of adaptation as well as here because they are included in the Act. So at least 1 year from the publication of the National Adaptation Strategy and Plan, the province or municipality needs to undertake a climate change needs response assessment for the different jurisdictions as stated. And also formulate steps to address effects in terms of performance of its function, considering the constitutionally mandated functions under the Act. And also, at least within 2 years, the provinces and also the municipalities are expected to undertake a climate change needs response assessment and also develop and publish in a government as a gazette a climate change response implementation plans. And this also needs to be reviewed every 5 years. So as you can see, there are very tight time frames in terms of what is expected from provinces and municipality under the climate change bill. And also the climate change bill also lays out what is expected in terms of the climate change needs and response assessment and what it should cover. I just highlighted one of the issues here in terms of identifying the climate change response and considering the options. And this training that we are planning to have is aimed at building capacity within the province and municipalities to enable you to, by the time this becomes a mandatory requirement, that you are ready and at least have been capacitated to be able to meet these requirements. As you can see, that it also states that it must be the climate change response must be based on best available science, evidence, and information. So the capacity building initiative that we are embarking on with WRI and as well as ICAT will at least is a first step to ensure that our provinces and municipalities are capacitated with the technical information to be able to meet these requirements. And following the completion of the climate change needs response assessment, the province or municipality will be required to draft a climate change response implementing plans. And this includes measures and programs that will be implemented by the province and municipality relating to both adaptation and mitigation. So in a nutshell, I think that is what is expected from provinces and municipality under the Act. And I think maybe the colleagues in the room are already aware of this, but I thought that as to set the scene, we should include this presentation on the climate change bill. So this slide aims to summarize, I know it's very busy, to summarize all the linkages in terms of the bill and what is expected from government with regards to setting of emission targets to ensure that we are responding as a country in terms of climate change response that is aligned with our international targets. So as you can see, the role of provinces sits under the climate change response plans, which I have explained above. And this is then the departure point for this capacity building initiative, because it is meant to address the capacity needs that are required by provinces and municipalities to be able to draft the climate change response plans. And also within our schemes, we have the sectoral emission targets, which will be allocated to the national departments responsible for different functions that have an impact on the national greenhouse gas emissions. And I'm not going to go through it in details in terms of the adaptation, but also there's expectation in there for the national departments to also develop sector adaptation plans. So yeah, this is the end of the presentation in terms of the climate change bill. I don't know, I'd like to stop here before I go into the next presentation in terms of the importance of greenhouse gas emissions inventories. If there are any questions, otherwise then I'll just go to the next presentation.
There's a question from Noloyiso.
Good morning, thanks. Yes, Cindy, thank you. Cindy, thank you. Can we go back to slide 13? I just want to check something very small there. As the slide before this one. Cindy, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Are you able to see? I'm on slide 13.
Okay, I'm still on thinking slide here. But anyway, I wanted to find out if there is any significance in the coloring of those departments. There's green and there's gold.
No, I don't think there is any significance in terms of the coloring, but for DFFE, it means that we are. It just shows that we are the department that is responsible for the overall coordination of this instrument.
And DMRE?
The MRE, I think the reason that it was highlighted, as you may be aware, and also in terms of the national emissions profile, the DMRE has significant impact in terms of our national emissions, and the policies that are put in place by DMRE has a significant impact in terms of how we transition as a country. And also, you know, what is expected from them to drive the implementation and the transition.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Okay, I'm assuming that there's no additional questions. So then I'll go to the next presentation looking at the importance of provincial emissions inventories. So the first point that I will go through is the national GHG emissions trajectory that I think we're all aware of, and also assess where are we now in terms of the trajectory and what our goal is, and where are we going forward, and just to highlight the extent of the work that is expected from everyone to be able to meet our emissions targets, and also then go through why we need to develop provincial and municipal emissions inventory and the recommended guideline that will take you through this capacity building initiative. So, as you all may be aware, developing a greenhouse gas emission inventory is the first step to implementing sustainability into climate change mitigation planning and policy. And it is the basis from which we need to then develop our emission reduction plans and strategy in any given jurisdiction. As the famous quote says, we can't manage what we can't measure. And our ability to take effective action depends on us having good data on our GHG inventories. And in summary, that is the basis of why we need to develop emissions inventories. But I'll go into detail in terms of the presentation. So as you all may be aware, as in the national determined contribution, we've committed to certain emission targets up to 2030. And now with the climate change bill in place, there is a requirement for the minister to determine the national GHG emission trajectory for the country. But for now, and I think this is also included in the Act itself, the trajectory that is defined in the NDC is considered the trajectory for the country and will remain the trajectory and the target for the country until the minister updates the trajectory as per the requirement in the Act. As you can see that by 2025, we need to limit our emissions as a country between 398 to 510 megatons of CO2. But then by 2030, you see that it's a bit stricter. We need to limit our emissions as a country between 350 to 20 as a lower limit to 420 megatons CO2 equivalent, and ultimately reach net zero by 2050. You see that 2030 is not so far, so I thought it's also important for us to look at where we are now in terms of the national emissions. We are in the process of updating the emissions inventory. But I've included in the slide the emissions information from the 2020 inventory. The next inventory is likely to be published in the next month or so, where information up to 2020 is included. But what we have seen is that with respect to the 2025 target, our emissions are below the upper limit, which is 510. And this is a good sign because it shows that we are likely to meet the 2025 target, but also taking into account that the 2020 emissions were highly impacted by the slow economic activity during 2020 due to COVID-19. So we need to take these numbers with caution. So the 2022 inventory will paint a good picture. Unfortunately, I cannot share those numbers here before they are officially approved within the department. But also what I've included is the 2030 upper limit in this graph to see that the 2030 upper limit target is 420 megatons. And as you can see, also with the impact of COVID, that we are likely not to meet this target if we continue with business as usual, because the emissions in 2020 were standing at 468 megatons, while the upper limit is 420. So there is significant work that still needs to be done to ensure that we are able to meet our international commitments. And also what I have included in this presentation is the National Greenhouse Gas Emissions Profile, just to sort of paint a picture of what can we get from the national GHG emissions inventory and what is required at a provincial and district level. So the national emissions inventory does provide a good picture in terms of what is happening within the different sectors. So we are able to see the contribution from energy, from the industrial processes, from waste, and also from the land sector. And this information that we have on our GHG inventory, as you all may be aware, is from 2000 and 2020. So we have a complete picture in terms of how emissions are changing at a national profile. But what is required for provinces and municipalities to be able to develop municipal or provincial emission strategy is more detailed than this. Because you need to be able to go into the understand the drivers of emissions within the different jurisdiction. And that's where this training then comes in. So here, for example, you're not able to see scope 2 emissions, which is from the use of electricity. And the reason for this is that the National Greenhouse Gas Emissions Inventory is developed to be able to assist us as a country to meet our international objectives in terms of reporting, and also to, at a national level, to be able to track what's happening with our emissions as a country. But more detail is required for provincial municipal emissions inventory, and I've highlighted some of the issues that provincial and municipal emissions inventory will assist the officials with. The first one being localized actions. So you'll be able to understand your emissions at a more granular level than the national emissions inventory, allowing targeted actions to reduce emissions in a specific sector or region. And also, we need to take into account that we need to make use of limited resources in addressing climate change. So understanding the emissions profile at a district or provincial level will assist municipalities in terms of resource allocation and be able to prioritize the actions that need to be implemented. The other thing is accountability and monitoring to allow at a subnational level the tracking of emission reduction targets versus the inventory like we are doing at a national level. And also what provincial and municipal inventories will assist us with, at least at a national, is if we have more data, because that's one of the challenges with emissions inventories, is that you are limited to the data that you have. So once systems are put in place at subnational level, we'll also be able to improve the data at a national level. And obviously, which is the main thing, the inventory will assist in terms of developing climate change reduction strategies, which I've indicated in the initial presentation, that municipalities will be and provinces will be required to develop climate change response plans. So as a unit that's responsible for GHG inventory, we looked at international guidelines that will assist municipalities in terms of being able to develop the emissions inventory at a local scale. So the recommended guideline, which I think the work plan will provide more detail, but we are recommending the greenhouse gas protocol for community scale greenhouse gas emissions inventory to be used at a subnational level, whether district or provincial, at provincial level, because it provides a robust and clear framework that builds on existing methodology for calculating and reporting the municipal GHG inventory. And it also provides clear guidance on how inventory boundaries need to be defined. And this accounting framework can be applied to any subnational level, so province, district, or local municipality. So this is what we are recommending to be used by provinces, and this capacity building initiative will be focusing on building capacities for the province and the district on this guideline. So yeah, that's the end of my two presentations. I'd like to check if there are any questions from colleagues. I don't see any hands, so I'm assuming there are no questions. Martin, can you please share the agenda again so we can go to the next item?
Sure, will do.
So the next presentation will be given by Mr. Mabena on the provincial and LG target setting process. So Mr. Mabena, you can share your presentation.
Okay. Good morning again, colleagues. Are you able to see my slide?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Mashele, for this floor, and good morning again, colleagues. I'm going to actually present on the guideline for the development of emission targets for provinces and local government. Well, perhaps before I talk specifically on guideline, I'll be broadly, outlining where the target setting exercise it's actually emanates from in terms of policy. Well, as you recall, that under the National Climate Change Response Policy 2011, under Section 7, the policy actually lists key elements in terms of overall approach to mitigation. This includes, key policy instruments that are outlined in the policy, which will help to drive, greenhouse gas emission reduction in South Africa. The policy talks about the need to develop and implement what we call the carbon budgets. And then also the policy talks about what is termed the desired emission reduction outcome, DEROS. However, that has been changed. This is now called the sectoral emission targets. And then also the policy talks about the need to, set the national emission trajectory. So essentially, this is some of the key, policy, instrument that will be utilized to reduce emissions in South Africa. And as Mrs. Marcel has narrated, these policy instruments now have been elevated to constitute, a regulatory framework under the draft climate change bill, which will then, of course, also become an act once promulgated by a cabinet. Well, there are certain clauses also that talks to the set policy instruments. In particular, under the climate change bill, draft climate change bill, under clause 22, the bill empowers the minister to list sectors and subsectors which are subject to allocation of sets, that is sectoral emission targets. And then under section 25, this regulation provides that the minister must publish a list of greenhouse gases, which the minister, deems necessary, in terms of addressing climate change. And then also the following slide actually is just a schematic presentation of what we call the mitigation system, which actually provides building blocks, if you like, or rather, several, policy instruments as well as levers that would help in terms of achieving lower carbon vision in South Africa. What you see on the slides is actually all the common components that sits in our strategic plan, program. The greenhouse gas inventory, constitutes a critical part of this work because oftentimes we'll need to benchmark against the inventory line to see where are we in terms of reducing emissions relative to inventory. The mitigation potential analysis also a very important piece of work that we undertake at national level. The trajectory, this is actually the national goal for mitigation. If you recall also, as Ms. Marshall has narrated in her presentation, the minister actually under the climate change bill is empowered to publish the national trajectory or target, if you like, on emissions. And then issues also on pathways. We are currently, for example, undergoing work around development of pathways up to 2050, which will then inform, emissions over time. Then the NDC also is one crucial element, the sets, carbon budgets. And then also, if you recall, also the sets, they will be informed by policies and measures. In other words, in order to attain sectoral emission targets, sector departments will be required to develop and implement policies and measures. And then also carbon budget, they will be driven actually by, certain measures. In this case, the industry under the climate change bill will be required to develop mitigation plans. These are the plans that indicate how they intend to, achieve their allocated carbon budget. And that is also regulated. And then currently we are actually coordinating a process, to or promulgate the regulation specifically for carbon budget and mitigation plans. And then, well, also the question has always arisen as to how can provinces and municipalities, find their place in the broader, work program of the NDC. And then hence, the guideline is actually a tool to support and respond to that, issue. The guidelines' primary purpose is to help communicate the role of provinces and local government in national mitigation system, as you have seen the earlier slide that I've shown. Basically, this is to say, how do provinces and municipalities play their part, in the overall national system, framework? So the guideline is, a tool to support, in that regard. The guideline is also intended to clarify the relationship of provinces and local government in relation to sets, because for sector department to achieve the allocated sets, it is envisaged that provinces and municipalities should provide, support. And how that can be done, the answer to that is actually, the guidance is provided through the guideline. Hence, this is the purpose of this guideline. Well, this is the current structure of the guideline. But as I mentioned, we are currently still in the process of, reworking and concluding this guideline. Currently, it simply shows the process that needs to be followed. However, what is lacking at the moment is, guidance on technical aspects, which will guide the provinces on how they can, set their targets in their jurisdiction. The guideline has basically, the current version of the guideline has got two parts. Part one talks to sets. It provides background. Then there is also a section on the criteria for selecting policies and measures, which I mentioned earlier. These are policies and measures to support the attainment of sets. Part two is on the climate change mitigation emission at provincial and local government level. Here again, I should clarify that the current climate change bill in relation to sets, that only affect sector departments and not provinces and local government. However, as I mentioned, provinces and local government need to find their place and contribute, towards, the achieving the national, target in terms of the sets. And then also a guideline, it has got, this guideline has got also guidance on principle for consideration when determining emission targets. So these are some of the elements that are contained thereof. It also provides guidance on the allocation of provincial local government emission targets. There's also guidance on MRV, that is monitoring, reporting and evaluation on the sets. And then also a linkage of PETs and LGAs, basically how provincial and local government, sectoral emission targets can be linked as well as to national sets. And hence, I will not go detailed on this because we are going to actually dive in during, the forthcoming workshops. So basically, this is just to reflect some of the elements that are contained in the guideline. Well, also one other important issue is the criteria for selecting policies and measures for informing the sets. The guideline provides that guidance actually. And then I would not go maybe in detail on this. As I mentioned, we will actually dive in during the forthcoming, technical sessions that we will have. We are going to jointly, have. And then also this guideline actually, it showcases steps that need to be followed. And then, of course, the primary key step that, which is the starting point, is for provinces and local government to have capacity to compile inventory. That talks to what I think Mrs. Mashele has narrated on her presentation, the greenhouse gas inventory. So that is the starting point. Hence, the inventory actually builds on that. So hence, it is linked to the targets. And then also the issue on the greenhouse gas emission baseline that also need to be defined in order for the guideline to be applied. That is step 2. And then step 3, development of climate change strategy. I think most of the provinces, they have this in place already. This needs to be done as well. The strategy that will present a vision for a province or municipalities in terms of climate change response. And then the 4th step will then, that leads to provincial and local government target setting, which is now the 4th step that will be done based on this guideline. And then also, as I mentioned earlier on, issues around PEMS. It provides guidance on how to collect information on PEMS that could be, help to drive the targets. And then the 5th step, also the guideline provides, recommends that consideration must be done to consider the environmental socio-economic benefits of sets, because we know that the pressure point at local government in particular, and of course also in the provinces, is the issues around service delivery, hence issues around the just transition, and co-benefits, the impact on jobs of policies and measures adopted is also crucial. Hence, this element will need to as well be taken into account. More so now that issues around the need for provinces and local government to mainstream the just transition mechanism has now, come afore. So these are some of the important elements that needs to be, considered. This is just an example of, some of the co-benefits that could derive from policies and measures, in various, policies. And then step 6 talks about the need to collaborate for provinces and municipalities to collaborate with national department to develop provincial and local government emission targets templates. This step actually highlights that we need to collaborate through, as you know, this collaborative mechanism, to develop the templates for this guideline. I think I've already alluded to this slide here on where the set sits in the climate change bill. And then in terms of the role of national government, this is the role that will be undertaken to support provinces and municipalities. We will provide technical support and also help to coordinate and monitor, as well as evaluate the implementation of provincial emission targets and local government emission targets. And then also will provide support to you in the formulation of respective climate change response implementation plans. Hence, we are also actually ready to support you on that exercise as well. We will also help coordinate capacity building to provinces and local government. And then also where possible, and then of course help to resource support where possible. A typical example is the current project that we are working on. So basically, this is the role that we will play. Well, this slide provides a content on the linkage of provincial emission targets and girls to overall sectoral emission targets. As I mentioned earlier on, provinces will be expected to play their part. Hence, the targets at provincial local government actually lend help to the broader national sets or sector emission targets that are allocated to sector departments. I think I would stop here. Basically, if I may summarize my presentation, we are currently having this draft guideline. We have solicited inputs from you, provinces and local government entities, colleagues. We have received comments and inputs from some of you, which is we are very happy for that. And then please do continue to send through your inputs as you see fit, which will be helpful. And also going forward, we will be working closely with WRI as well as our partner now, the service provider Gondwana, to help sort of like finalize this guideline. Once we have received all your inputs. Maybe let me just stop here and allow you colleagues if there are any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mapena, for that presentation. As Mr. Mapena indicated, the floor is open for questions. I see there's a hand from Ari. You can come in.
Yes, thank you. Okay, we've mentioned earlier on in your
No,
presentation.
thanks. Yeah, I can see. Yeah, I can see a hand from
Ari.
Aris. Yeah, yes. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I was saying from your presentation and the previous presentation, as mentioned, the emission targets, and obviously they've come down a bit now. They've been revised, and also been told that the minister will publish the targets at a time to come. In terms of the provincial and local government emission targets, are they also going to be provided by our national government, or will they be given a formula to the local authority, local government and local authorities to determine that, or is some other method? How does that happen?
No, thank you very much for the question. Kapsidas, sorry. Oh yeah, no, thank you very much for the question. I'll respond. I think I heard part of the question. Unfortunately, communication is poor. But as we mentioned earlier on, at the moment, the provincial and local government targets, they sit outside the climate change bill. So what is contained in the bill only affects sector departments. So hence provincial and local government sets are just a tool or a means to support, sector departments to achieve the sets, but that is not, contained in the bill. But as we mentioned earlier on, the expectation is that because it is as informed by climate change policy, climate change action is bottom up. Emissions, do occur at local government or provincial jurisdiction. A typical example is transport emissions, and then hence it will be helpful to also set targets for a provincial and local government, to help the broader, target setting at national level. But as I mentioned earlier, that sits outside the climate change bill. But also what is, I think, crucial here is the question which has always been asked: to what do provinces and municipals play in terms of, addressing climate change? For example, to what extent are provinces and local government contribute towards the achievement of the NDC. So those are some of the issues, and hence those PGATs and LGATs are an answer to that. I think maybe I'll allow also colleagues to help to respond if there is a part that I did not get understanding. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mapena. I think I can add to that. As Mr. Mapena indicated, in what is specified explicitly within the climate change bill in terms of targets, for us as a country is the national GHG inventory, which I've also covered in my presentation. But as indicated, the role of provinces is also there in the bill, where you, as provinces, you need to draft your climate change response implementation plans. And within that, you need to then have targets which the guideline that will go through in this capacity building initiative will sort of provide a guideline in terms of how that needs to be done. The first point being understanding your emissions profile as a province or a district municipality, and hence the training is also focusing on the development of greenhouse gas emissions inventories. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, Pomoto.
Thank you, Chair. I need to check how if provincial and local government emission targets are set and are not linked to national targets. How do you see this working in terms of alignment? Because if, say, for example, as a provincial government, we've identified, for example, say, industry as the major source of greenhouse gas emissions, and we set targets for that sector. And going with those targets, each emitting facility, or I don't know what to call it, or industrial facility has got plans. You had to set plans to reduce emissions, to work towards, to contribute towards the target set for the sector. And there's also national sets with specific targets for companies or for emitters. And if there's no linkage or alignment with the provincial targets, how is that going to work? If I don't know, I'm just trying to work my mind through this whole presentation, and I can't figure it out. Can you please just clarify that if you get my question? Thanks.
Thank you, Pomoto. Mr. Mapena, do you want to come in, or I can come in on this one?
No, yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Marcel. No, thank you very much, Pomoto. Actually, the issue you are raising is very important. Actually, this is a process that will unfold once sector departments are allocated targets. The process which will be done is exactly what you have mentioned, because there has to be collaboration with provinces and local government on how to achieve sector, the national targets. So actually that process, there's a built-in mechanism which is done, but also the understanding is that also provinces and municipalities will need to do their part in terms of target setting. And hence, even though that doesn't sit within the bill, and then the guideline is actually a process to help respond exactly to what you are saying, the how part, to how will that link to national, target setting. Hence, once we have finalized the guideline, then it will actually automatically actually respond to that question. So hence, that is why we have got this guideline. So that guidance will be actually contained in the guideline. As I mentioned, this is still in the draft form, it's still work in progress. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mapenda. I see there's a hand from Noloi, so you can come in.
Yeah, no, thanks. Pumuzo, I think this is our fate going forward. The bill is at the stage where it is now. I do remember us raising this very sharply at the consultation meetings. Actually, I personally presented this comment on the, I think it was October 2020, which year? 2022. Yeah, it's a shortcoming we are going to live with, because if you look at what the response that the colleagues are giving, that it is not within the bill. And then again, we are saying provinces and target setting. So we are setting targets, but we are also falling outside the bill. So it strengthens the point then of a lack of, what do you call this? That link of, sorry, I just lost the term. Vertical integration, yeah. It emphasizes then the point that you always lament of a lack of it. Hello, someone? Someone, can I finish, please? Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so I think then it weakens the vertical integration. I think it's the way it is now, and it's unfortunate, and I think that is how we are going to live with it. Oops, sorry, I was speaking muted. Sorry about that. I don't know how far you weren't hearing me, but I was saying there are we are saying two things here. The bill is not provinces and municipalities are not within the bill in terms of this. By the same time, we're talking about provinces and target setting. So we are going to be setting targets, but the bill is not giving us that strength. So it weakens our position in terms of the vertical integration. And I think, well, we are here now. I think we are going to live with it, but it's just, it does not make sense. Maybe one of the amendments that will be made later on the Climate Change Act will have taken into account this part. I remember raising this point quite sharply 2 years ago during the consultations, and I was hoping that it could be attended to, but it seems it did not. Well, it was not. So I think that's how. Otherwise, colleagues, I agree with Pumuzo. It's just there's some sense that is lacking or that is missing. But unfortunately, we're here now, so let's just go ahead.
Thanks so much, colleagues, for your input. I think that was more of a comment, and I think we do take note of it, and hence we are having this engagement and the planned also work plan in terms of capacity building is also us trying to find common ground in terms of where provinces fit in. And also there is provision within the climate change bill for provinces to then define their climate change response plans. And at least from what I'm hearing at the moment, and I speak under correction, that will be the empowering provision to effect the targets that will be set by provinces. I see there's a hand from Ari.
Yes, thank you. I mean, it's important what the previous speaker said about the alignment with the national target. Otherwise, we may not achieve it. But the point I want to make is that with Gauteng itself, okay, I wasn't here around 5 or 6 or 10 years ago when it happened. Our strategy of 20 was brought out in 2014. It was formulated, and at that time, our previous NDC, the national NDC, when it was still 415 and around 631 megatons per CO2 equivalent, there was a target given to Gauteng or determined for Gauteng, and that was according to the national NDC target. So there must have been some mechanism at that time, or how it was worked out, I don't know, that relates to the national target. Obviously, there must be some factor or weight that says because Gauteng produces so much of GDP or so many industries percentage, that's how much the NDC, its own target must be. Now, what I'm saying is maybe I don't know, those people who were around at that time would know how that target was worked out, either from in my province or was given to us through national. But that's the point I want to make. Thank you.
Thanks, Ari. I'll let Mr. Mapena respond to that. He's been with the department for a long time. Maybe he has that background.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, no, thank you very much. I think this is a very helpful input. We are taking note of this. And also, as we mentioned, because I think we need to understand that the climate change bill, as it stands, is a framework legislation. There are going to be regulations promulgated under the Climate Change Act once it's enacted as a fully fledged legislation. And hence, perhaps these are some of the issues that could be incorporated into the forthcoming regulations under the bill, which I think they are quite helping. Hence, we have taken note of this contribution. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mapana, and thank you, colleagues, for your input. As Mr. Mapana has indicated, in terms of the guidelines, it's still open and it's a document that will update on an ongoing basis. So if you have comments where you think that certain issues need to be clarified in terms of the implementation plans, what we can then attempt to do is also, at least find a way to incorporate that in the guideline that will be discussed under this program. And thank you so much. I don't know if there are further inputs from the colleagues before we move on to the next presentation. Okay, I see there are no further hands. So we'll move on then to the next presentation. Maliba, are you ready?
Yes, Cindy, let me just share quickly my presentation. Is it showing now?
Yes, I can see it on my side.
Okay, thank you so much, Chairperson. My name is Malibo Seletse from the Climate Change Mitigations and Specialist Monitoring Services. I'm in the Climate Change Research and Analysis Directorate. So what are we going to cover today? We'll be looking at just to remind ourselves on the definition of the MRV in terms of the UNFCCC when we speak about climate change mitigation MRV. And then in the climate change bill, the same comment that we've been discussing just now after the presentation from Mr. Mabena, we'll be looking at the section 15 which talk about developing of the climate change response plan. And then we'll be talking about how are we going to track progress of the provincial and local emission targets, including also those climate change response plans, then the tools for conducting mitigation assessment, and then available resources. So just a refresher to remind ourselves, the MRV stands for measurement, reporting, and verification. So MRV of greenhouse gas emission describes the process of measuring and monitoring of greenhouse gas emissions, compiling and reporting this information to a system, program, or a body, and then subjecting this reported data to a party review and verification process. So the scope of MRV system, the scope of an MRV system depends on the user and the goal of what you want to achieve. You can do MRV of greenhouse gas emission, and when you're doing MRV of greenhouse gas emission, you can conduct that at a national, organizational, or facility level. for you to be able to understand the entity's emission or the organizational emissions profile and report it in the form of an emissions inventory. We can do the MRV of mitigation action, and this is used to assess policy and project effect on the greenhouse gas emissions and sustainable development. So looking at the sustainable development, we'll be looking at those non-greenhouse gas impact of implementing those projects. For example, your job creation, and also monitor how is their implementation going forward. This type of an MRV, it focuses on estimating the change in greenhouse gas emissions or other non-greenhouse gas variables. The third one is MRV of support, which look at climate finance and capacity building. So this MRV, we are doing it so that we can track provision and receipt of climate support, monitor achieved results, and assess the impact. So if we go in the draft climate change bill, section 15, I think this is what Cindy was referring to, it makes provision that a member of the executive council and a mayor of a metropolitan or a district municipality, as the case may be, must within 2 years of undertaking the climate change needs and response assessment, develop and implement a climate change response implementation plan as a component of and in conjunction with provincial, metropolitan, or district municipal planning instruments, policies, and programs, and review, and to the extent necessary, amend the climate change response implementation plan at least once every 5 years. The climate change mitigation measures included in the plan would form the basis of the provincial emission targets and local emission targets. So the targets that you will have in the climate change response plans, it is what then will be extracted to be called your provincial emission targets and local emission targets within the provincial and the municipalities, as well as the supporting local level programs and initiatives that will contribute to the achieving of your emission targets. So this is the part that we're talking about now in the discussion, to say the part of the local emission target is not yet included in the bill. But if we use that section 15 of the bill that talks about climate change response plans, out of those response plans, that's where we are going to draw out our provincial and local emission targets. So, Mr. Mabena has presented on the provincial and local emission targets, which is a draft. So according to the draft that has been presented, it says that provincial and local government emission targets implementation should include regular monitoring and evaluation, with the expectation of implementation progress reports against the planned policies and measures as presented in the climate change response implementation. So now once we get to the point where we are under implementation of this Climate Change Act and now the local emission targets, it is very important that now before the implementation, we also plan, how are we going to track our achievement? How are we going to track that our targets, we are now running on track with meeting our targets? There's the planning that needs to happen now before we get to implementation. So before we can get to say this is how we will do it, we need to first develop a greenhouse gas inventory. For you to be able to set your target, you cannot set your emission target without knowing what is your emission profile as a province or as a municipality. So the first step is for you to understand your emission profile. And after understanding the emission profile, then you'll be able also to get an understanding of the mitigation needs and opportunities, and then you'll be able to develop your emission targets. So after you've developed your emission targets, that's when now the MRV of mitigation actions will come through, where now we need to understand the impact of implemented mitigation actions. So for the provinces and the local government to be able to implement this, they will need to have capacity, the technical capacity for them to be able to compile the GHG inventory, for them to be able to conduct a mitigation assessment. And that is the reason why we have partnered with the ICAT to help us together with the Gondwana to have a training in order to ensure that by the time we get to implementation, we already have, we are confident to say, we are confident that provinces can do their own mitigation action assessment. So one would ask, why is it important to develop the greenhouse gas inventory? It's very critical for us to develop the greenhouse gas inventory because of it is a first step in designing and setting emission targets. And then the greenhouse gas inventories are needed to identify high emitting sectors and prioritize mitigation opportunities. A greenhouse gas inventory is also required during the implementation phase to track changes in greenhouse gas emission and removal at the end of the target period to assess whether the target has been achieved. So why would it be important for us to do this program to say we want to ensure that we train our provinces and the locals so that they are able to track progress of achieving their emission target? So we want to understand whether the actions that will be implemented are effective in delivering the intended results. We also want to use the results that are coming from that mitigation assessment to inform and improve the action implementation. It is also going to help us as a province to understand greenhouse gas emission trends. It will also help us to evaluate contribution of the actions towards our broader greenhouse gas reduction goal, which is our national determined contribution target and the South African mitigation goals. It also helps us to report on the greenhouse gas effects of actions over time. If ever at the provincial level you are implementing a project on renewable, doing a mitigation assessment or monitoring that project over time, it will help you to be able to report on the impact of you implementing that project. And then it will also help us to meet the requirements of reporting of greenhouse gas reduction from the mitigation action. Because of internationally, we are required to now report under the Paris Agreement, we are required to report every second year on the biennial transparency report. So overall, this thing also help us even on our international obligation under the Paris Agreement, because you are required to report on how are we tracking the progress in us achieving the national determined contribution. So there are tools that are available to help us to conduct the mitigation assessment. There's climate action aggregation tool. The climate aggregation tool is an easily accessible Excel-based tool that enables users to identify, quantify, and aggregate the impact of non-state or subnational action and integrate the estimated impact into the mitigation targets. And it also helps you to do projections and scenarios. So it's built on the ICAT non-state and subnational assessment guide. During our program that will be running, we are going to go into detail and also have practical example that we can do based on the province on the climate action aggregation tool. So this is the tool that will be going around when we are doing our provincial training, and we'll be training provinces on them. Then we have the greenhouse gas abatement cost model. The greenhouse gas or the GASMO model is a modeling tool developed at UNEP DTU partnership. It aims to provide countries, mainly developing countries, with a tool that allows them to carry out rapid but accurate evaluation of the greenhouse gas emission impact of variety of mitigation actions. Then the tool again is based on an Excel and can be freely downloaded onto the individual computer from their website. There's also the low emission analysis platform, and it is widely used software tool for energy policy analysis and climate change mitigation assessment developed at the Stockholm Environment Institute. LEAP and all its associated training material and documentation are distributed free of charge to the academic, governmental, and not-for-profit organization based in developing world. So I'm also aware that while you're going to be doing this program under the capacity building initiative that is supported by UNEP, that will be also rolled out to provinces. They will also come again and do a training also on the low emission analysis platform. And then the resources that will be used for conducting mitigation assessment, we'll be looking at the the greenhouse gas protocol under the mitigation gold standard, and then also the policy and action standard. So when we are doing our training, looking at conducting of the mitigation assessment, we will also go into detail in doing mitigation assessment per sector, looking at the energy, waste, AFULU, and the IPPU. So we'll also ensure that we have different examples for each and every sector. But then that information, I think Gondwana will go much into detail on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam, for the presentation and for reiterating some of the issues that were covered in the initial presentation. I'd just like to check if there are any questions from colleagues. Okay, I see there are no questions at the moment. I'd like to suggest, I know we are behind time. We're supposed to have a 30 minutes break. But with your concurrence, I would like to suggest that maybe we have a 10 minutes body break instead, and return at 10:50 for the next session. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Cindy.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
thank you, Mrs. Marcel, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll start again then at 10:50. I just want to check if everyone is back. If you can please give me a thumbs up, just to show that everyone is back in the room. Colleagues, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, Ms. Marcel, we can hear you. Thanks, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Hope you had a good break and were able to get coffee or something. I think then we'll go into the next session now. Looking at the project itself. Mr. Mapena will take us through the overview of the project and how it addresses the needs that were outlined in the previous presentation. You have the floor, Mr. Mapena.
Thank you very much, Ms. Marcella. Let me just load the presentation. Colleagues, good morning again. I hope you are able to see my slides. I'm just going to provide an overview of the project, basically narrating the purpose of this project. Well, colleagues, as you recall that the reason we are actually implementing this project, this was actually informed by the provincial, local government needs. I think, as you recall, that there was a rigorous process to consult you through the working group 9, sessions on your priorities in terms of capacity building to enhance your MRV. This is so important, more so currently, as you are aware that there are new emerging issues, that needs us to respond to. Typical one is the climate change bill. As South Africa's climate action is evolving over time, issues like the just transition also are playing additional responsibility to all of us, not only at national level, but also at provincial and local government. And hence, this project is actually one of the contribution that is being done to support, in particular provinces and local government in MRV. But if you may like, the broad objective of this project is to support country governments to enhance technical capacity to assess and integrate non-state and subnational climate action into national climate change policy and decision-making processes. Basically, this is to help to understand how climate action at subnational level can inform, a national, climate action broadly. Well, as I mentioned earlier, there was a rigorous process that was undertaken to consult you on your priorities. Of course, there were mention points where provinces, highlighted their interest and priorities in terms of MRV capacity building. The project then actually has been designed to respond to those capacity support needs, and it is broadly framed into 4 building blocks. The first one is the target setting, capacity building on target setting. As I mentioned earlier, this component of the project will actually focus primarily to provide technical support to provinces and local government on how to set targets. This will be done in 2 ways. There will be actually a comprehensive capacity building on the process to do that. That will also be accompanied by, resource material, like as we mentioned earlier, the set guideline that we are jointly developing, which will also provide guidance on how to set targets. So hence this is the initial component of this project. The second one, which is also equally important, is the issue of the compilation of the greenhouse gas inventory. I think on that one, I think Mrs. Mashele has actually comprehensively covered this component. And then also my colleague Malebo as well. So the project will look at the capacity building on inventory, in particular applying the global protocol for community scale greenhouse gas inventory guideline. So this is the second component of the project. Then the third component, also broadly equally important, is issues on mitigation analysis. On this component, the project will actually provide capacity to participants on the ICAT aggregation tool. There will be hands-on exercises on the tool. And then we will be actually uploading some initial data sets, broadly to inform this tool, which will be shared with all of you. It's quite a user-friendly tool. So all participants will be, will be gaining capacity on applying the tool. Also, because actually the tool aggregates action at national level, I think in our last interaction, there was a recommendation that perhaps we could aggregate at provincial as well as a national level. That means if we do that way, we will then be able to understand, how the local government action informs provincial government, and also combined to that, how that informs, national action. So hence, that is also one component of the project. Then the fourth one, equally important, is the SharePoint system that will be building up, which will load all relevant resource materials for participants to familiarize themselves. And not only that, but the SharePoint system will support, officials in terms of exchanging experiences and also to learn from others what they are doing. So we'll be encouraging everyone to share data, information, experiences on that SharePoint system. So hence, this will also allow us, to talk to amongst ourselves, to share information. By the way, we have already actually initiated a process to that. Some of the information we have collated already, which will also inform that SharePoint system. But apart from this, also, this project does not only provide support in terms of capacity building on these tools, but also equally important, it provides support to build, to enhance institutional arrangement on MRV, because some of the elements it highlights, for example, defines roles at national level. What is it that we'll be doing to support, in terms of MRV at national level? Also, it defines roles for provinces and local government. A typical example is on the such guidelines. So hence, this project also, it's supporting the enhancement of the, institutional arrangements on MRV, other than, also providing technical support. So broadly, this is a reflection of this project. And then, of course, we will be diving maybe in depth. Also, Gondwana will highlight some of these components to narrate specifically what action will be done under each component of this project. Thank you very much, colleagues.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mabena, for the presentation. I'd like to check if there are any questions from colleagues. I don't see any hands. I'm assuming there's none. I've seen on the chat the request for the presentation. As Martin has indicated, will provide all the material that is presented during this meeting. The next presentation is from ICAT and will be presented by Oleg. You have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Just give me a second to share the presentation. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, great. So in the coming couple of minutes, I would like to, first of all, to present what is ICAT, what is Initiative for Climate Action Transparency, and then to highlight some important point from the project that we are kicking off today here in this workshop. So the ICAT is the partnership. It was set up in 2015, and it's a partnership of donors. Currently, we have 6 donors, 4 countries: Austria, Germany, Canada, and Italy, and 2 philanthropic foundations: Climate Work Foundation and Children Investment Fund Foundation. And the partnership also includes our implementing partners. You can see on the screen the logo of the World Resource Institute, who is our implementing partner for this particular project, and some others. For example, it was mentioned today the GACMO tool that was developed by Copenhagen Climate Center, and we hosted by UNOPS. It's a UN Office for Project Services, and we operate globally since 2015, and we support countries in enhance their national capacity with everything relates to transparency. And by transparency, it's a very broad term. So transparency meaning that data collection, data analysis, and data reporting, everything related to climate change mitigation and adaptations. And since 2015, we've been working with more than 50 countries directly. And in addition, we have set up 3 regional collaboration centers for transparency, one in Central Africa, another in Central Asia, and the third one recently opened in Central America. So normally we do the projects directly with the government. That's the case with the current project, where we are partnering with DFFE, and we engage with one of our international implementing partner, and in this case is World Resource Institute, who provides the expertise. So what we offer? We offer the capacity building activities, and we offer the suite of tools and guides that we call the toolbox, the ICAT toolbox. So that's something that you may see some familiar logos from this slide. On the bottom, you see the non-state and subnational action guide. So that's what we are going to help you to implement in the framework of this project. And the rest of the guides may help the national and subnational governments to assess the impact of climate policies in different sectors like agriculture, energy, forestry, transport, and so on. And also there are some cross-cutting guides that covers all of the sectors. It's the impact assessment of climate policies on the Sustainable Development Goals, and also the assessment of potential for transformational change for some of the policies. And that might be very interesting in the framework of setting provincial targets. And also what may help to facilitate the application of those guides is the guide for stakeholder participation and technical review. So those are the documents that requires the stakeholder engagement, workshops, and discussion. On top of that, we offer the suite of tools. And here you can see in the center of the screen the climate action aggregation tool that was developed by New Climate Institute in Berlin, and that was to complement the guide on NCA, subnational action. And there are some other tools that might be useful, maybe not on the subnational level, but one of those already been mentioned is the GHG abatement cost model, GASMO. It's useful to account for any climate action either on national or subnational level. Though it requires some input data and it might be challenging to apply it on the subnational level, depends on data availability. Still, it's very detailed and it gives very nice perspective on not only on the setting target, but also on monitoring and evaluating the impact of the target ex post. So some other tools that might be useful for subnational needs response assessment and setting up the climate change response plans is the guides for adaptation and tools, the loss and damage guide that we developed basically in the project with South Africa. And in case South Africa is thinking of engaging in Article 6 activities or carbon market, we have a guide on transparency of Article 6 activities. So that's what ICAT is offering to all the countries. All of the guides and the tools are free of charge. They are available on our website. So if you are interested, please download them, and we will be happy to respond to any queries and questions, and maybe thinking of application of those guides later on. These are the guides that are coming soon, and I will probably skip the slides, not to overload you with so much of the information. So coming back to our project that we discussed today. We've been active in South Africa. ICAT been active in South Africa for quite some time. So first we have had the project to set up the monitoring and evaluation framework for adaptation and assessing the economic cost of loss and damage. That was done with the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, CSIR, over the period of 2019 to 2023. Currently, we are working with Presidential Commission on Climate to set up the monitoring, evaluation, and learning framework for just transitions. That project is ongoing now, and it's a lot to do there, and we are thinking about continuing our collaboration with PCC. And as the reason for all of us being in this workshop today is the integration of non-state action into national planning and monitoring, reporting, and verification of climate mitigation action. So that's where we are partnering with DFFE and with our implementing partner WRI and Gondwana International. And so far, discussion was really interesting for me, also to put it in the perspective of other countries where we're active in supporting national governments and subnational governments. And I would like just to highlight that you are not alone in this challenge on trickling down the national climate targets into subnational climate targets. It's very challenging to in the beginning to build this system properly, so that it's a two-way communication between national government and subnational government. Also, how to set up the subnational target that would be aligned with the long-term national strategy. So it's a very challenging and difficult process, but when the system is set up, it would give and open a lot of opportunities for subnational governments, specifically in the matters related to formulating the climate change needs and response actions, that it would build the ownership. You know, that's very important, that it's not going only top down from the national government to subnational, the target that would be difficult to implement, and at the end, a country may fail in implementing their NDC. But when it comes from bottom up, from subnational governments, it builds the ownership, it creates the proper communication channels between the subnational governments and national governments, and in the end, it makes implementation of climate actions more effective and more granular, and it gives more information to national governments how to navigate through setting the targets in a way that it not overburden the municipalities and provinces. So I believe that we are on the right track by starting with subnational GHG inventories, because that's the foundation for understanding what could be translated into the sectoral emission targets and provisional emission targets. Without proper inventories, it's not possible to formulate it in a meaningful way. So once the subnational inventories, once the capacity will be built on how to formulate the subnational inventories, then the setting up the provincial targets will be much easier, and many questions that have been raised earlier today will become more clear and understandable. And I'll stop here, and I'm happy to take any questions related to ICAT work and how to collaborate with us and what other support we can provide. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Oleg, and thank you for that input in terms of the process. We really do appreciate this, because we're in the initial phases of implementing this work as the climate change bill we're hoping will be enacted soon. So you sharing your experiences and how you see this process rolling out going forward is really helpful for us to at least give us an indication that we are in the right in the right direction. So I'd like to open up the floor for questions from colleagues. Yes, Matthews can come in.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks for the presentation. Just on one slide on the toolbox, you indicated technical review. Just wondering, how do we access that? Because I think we once did some work with one of your partners, Ricardo. I think it was a year or two back. I don't know if the service of the work is available, and how can we tap into that? Because we might be in need of it at some point. Thanks.
Maybe I can collate some other questions if they are, and then respond to them in one go. Or if there are no other questions, I would just like to clarify that you are in need of making the technical review of the work previously done by Ricardo, or what was the question?
No, Ricardo did a review for us on terms of reference before we started the greenhouse gas project. So we've moved ahead now. We're actually in the middle of the project now. So the idea is that at some point before the final report, we get some technical review. That's the question. Thanks.
I think in the context of the current project, the technical review might not be the proper guide, because the technical review guide was developed to assess the what has been done using the one of our impact assessment guides. So, for example, you have a renewable energy policy, you apply our guides, you come up with some possible emission reductions in the future, for example, from feed-in tariff implementation on the national or on the subnational level. And then you would like to verify whether the results are correct. And for that, you apply the technical review guide. So that would involve another set of experts who will go through the application of the initial guide and validate the outcomes or verify the outcomes. In the context of current project, the provinces will receive the capacity building on how to compile the inventories on the subnational and municipal level. And only when those inventories will be ready, that's another step in the process. When inventories will be ready, you would need to have a review and validation of those inventories. And for that, I'm not sure that our guide would be suitable, because it's more complex process review of inventories. And when it comes to application of non-state and subnational action and CAAT tool, that has the validation instruments embedded in the tool itself. So that's what we call the avoidance of double counting. For example, if you have the national policy on transport and then implementation of subnational policy with some additional measures, how to ensure that emission reductions are not reported 2 times on the subnational national level, that can be taken care by application of CAAT tool. So I hope I answer your question, but if not, please clarify what was the issue with technical review. Thank you.
Thank you, Oleg, for that response. Matthews, can you confirm if your question has been addressed?
Somewhat, but I think we can take it offline. There's two different things. Yeah, I'll be in contact with you, Ms. Michelle.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Mapana, you can come in.
Yeah, no, thank you very much, Ms. Mashele. Well, thank you very much, Alec, for your presentation, which is very helpful. Mine is not a question, but rather, I'm just raising a point of appreciation for your presentation. In particular, I think I just picked up from your presentation that ICAT has already worked on new tools that addresses new emerging issues, in particular the loss and damage and Article 6 framework. Actually, these are the areas that we are moving towards working to enhance. Maybe although they sit beyond this project, we will in future engage you to perhaps also make exchanges on these tools. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mapena, for the comment. So I just want to check before we move on to the next item if the colleagues don't have any questions on the presentation from Oleg, so we can move on. Thank you so much, Oleg, for the presentation. It's really appreciated. Then I'll hand over to Gondwana to take us through the work plan for the project.
I'm first going to, Cindy, with your permission, play the video that we got from WRI.
Oh, yes, please.
Right. I'm going to share the video. Hopefully the sound comes through. If it doesn't, just shout out and tell me that it's not audible. Good sound. Is the recording visible, at least at this stage?
Yes, we can see it.
All right, I'm going to play it. Hopefully we can hear Neelam as well.
My apologies that I'm not online in real time with you all today, but I wanted to share this message as you all gather for this project Inception meeting. My name is Neelam, and I work as a senior associate with the World Resources Institute, and I'm based in the Washington, D.C. office in the U.S. Perhaps some of you already know WRI. It's a non-profit organization that works at the nexus of societies and environment using research-based approaches across a number of issues, including climate change. We have been an implementing partner with the Initiative for Climate Action Transparency, ICAT, for several years. We have a technical advisor role in this multifaceted project in South Africa to serve capacity building needs related to MRV at the provincial level. In partnership with the ICAT, WRI and another organization called the New Climate Institute had developed a guide laying out steps to add up the impact of various kinds of climate actions being taken by provinces and other actors and estimate their GHG impact in future, the projected future GHG impact. The guide, which is called the ICAT Non-State and Subnational Actions Guide, can be used to similarly aggregate the potential impact of other kinds of actors as well, along with provincial actors such as companies and cities, or a combination of actors, such as looking at the impact of actions being taken by cities as well as provinces, and in doing so, accounting for possible overlap and avoiding double counting. For instance, if a city is working on transport-related issues and taking action to reduce GHG emissions related to transport, and a province also has some targets related to that particular sector, how in terms of estimating the impact of these kind of actions, how to ensure that these are not being counted twice if you're looking at the contribution at a provincial scale or a national scale. So the guide provides methodological solutions to approach problems such as that. And essentially, its purpose is to assess the collective impact of all kinds of actions that are happening in addition to the national actions. To go along with the guide, NCI had also developed an Excel-based open source tool that can be downloaded on your desktop and used to estimate the impact in a more user-friendly manner. It has a series of spreadsheets with some already included formulas, etc., that makes it an easier exercise to calculate the impact once the data is in. So there are activities related to all of this in the project in the later stages, and we look forward to engaging more closely at that time. And I wish I could join the entire workshop and discussions today, but given the time zone difference, that's hard. And I wanted to provide this brief introduction as you begin the day's discussions as our contribution today. And I look forward to any recordings or workshop notes when they're ready to be shared. And hope you all have a very productive series of sessions. Thank you, and bye, and good luck with the workshop. Thank you.
Thanks, Martin, for playing the recording. So I think then we'll move on to the next item, which is the work plan. And we'll also make sure that we share the workshop notes with WRF so they know what was discussed here as well.
Thanks, Cindy. So we will present in two phases. I will present on the project work plan. A lot of it has already been covered by previous presenters, so I'll go through it quickly, and then Luann will present on the status assessment that we did with the provinces leading up to this workshop. So let me share my screen again with the presentation. All right, so I will just cover introduction to the Gondwana team, the people working on the project. Look at the project rationale, which we've already spoken about in some detail today. I'll cover the work plan activities and the timelines. But as I said, a lot of it has been covered, so I'll just go through it fairly quickly, but just to give you an overview of what the project is. So I'm the project manager on the Gondwana side, responsible for project management. Jade Jacobs is our office manager, and if you have been dealing with her in preparation for next week's workshop, you'll already be familiar with her. We have two specialists working on the project with us. We have Brett Cohen, who's going to be talking about the GHG inventory sectors, energy, IPPU, and waste, and also talking in later workshops on emissions target setting and mitigation. Then we have Luann, who's also a GHG inventory specialist on the agricultural and land use side. And then we'll also provide input in a later workshop on the climate action aggregation tool. And then we have two researchers who are working to support the project. That is Feleng and Daniela. So that's the team working on this project on the Gondwana side. We did introduce ourselves at the beginning of this workshop. I won't talk too much about the project rationale because all the previous speakers have already spoken about this, but just to say that that South Africa's monitoring and evaluation system puts emphasis on a bottom-up approach to gather data from sub-national governments, and so that's the whole rationale for this project, is to encourage that bottom-up approach. Then what does South Africa have? So a lot of work has been done at the national level, as has been indicated, with institutional arrangements, inventories, targets, and the MRV system. But what we really need is for that to be supplemented by and fed into from the provincial levels, and maybe in the future even down to the local level. So how are we supporting that with this project? There's a requirement for institutional arrangements, inventories, sectoral targets, and tracking, as has been said, at the provincial level. And this project is providing capacity building and training on addressing those things, specifically the GPC methodology, which will be handled next week, enabling provinces to attend to their greenhouse gas inventories. The tool will be discussed in the next workshop, and also the NSA guide and target setting will be addressed in workshops going forward. So the project has been divided into 5 phases. This workshop is part of the Inception phase. Then we have phase 1 is related to the greenhouse gas inventories. Phase 2 is primarily looking at the climate action aggregation tool. Phase 3 is capacity building on developing and reporting on provincial and local emission targets. And the last phase is sharing of knowledge and lessons learned from this project. And there'll be workshops linked to each of those phases. So part of the Inception phase was a stock-taking exercise, which Luann will share some of the learnings we've had so far on that. We also are putting all the information related to this project on a SharePoint system, and this Inception workshop that we're doing today is part of this first Inception phase of our project. The second phase, which is actually activity 1, is to do mainly around the greenhouse gas inventories, and there's a 4-day workshop that's been planned for next week to do capacity building on greenhouse gas inventories. That workshop will be a hybrid workshop for people to come to in person, as well as there will be facilities for people to access the training remotely next week. We will probably also be recording the training, so that training will be an ongoing resource going forward. Section activity 2 is around the climate action aggregation tool. For understanding impact of climate actions. That workshop is going to come up later on in the project. Then we have an activity around capacity building on developing emission targets, and a lot has been said about the guidelines around developing targets at non-national or sub-national levels. So that guideline is being developed as we speak, and this section of the project is around training on setting targets. And then finally, the last activity for the project is to compile a report on lessons learned and have a workshop with all the stakeholders to share those lessons learned and perhaps see what would be the most appropriate way forward from there. In terms of timeframes for the project is a 12-month project. We were appointed in November last year, and most of the work that we've been doing in the first 3 or 4 months has been around the stock taking exercise and the inception phase, where we've been making sure that the work plan meets the needs of the department. The first activity and workshop, which will primarily be happening next week, was scheduled to happen in sort of February, March, April time. The CAT training workshop is scheduled for April, May. And then the provincial target setting workshop will be in the second half of the year, probably around July, August. And we'll close off the meeting with the activity 4, sharing of knowledge and lessons learned in compiling the report in September and having the closeout workshop in October of this year. Thanks, Cindy. That's my presentation. I don't know if you want to take questions now or go straight into Luann's presentation.
I think let's cover both presentations and we'll take questions at the end.
Okay. Luann?
Great. Thanks. Let me just share my screen. Okay. Thanks, everybody. So as Martin mentioned, part of the first phase, the inception phase of the project, was to sort of look at the climate change response situation in the various different provinces, because we do understand that the various provinces are at different stages, and so we want to gather information to see how best we can tailor the training to suit the needs of the various different provinces. So part of was this, we sent out initially we've sent out a survey to each of the provinces just to get an initial assessment of their climate change activities going on in the provinces. And we may still, so I'm going to present here some initial data coming out of that. We may still follow up with some other provinces to get some additional information or clarification before we incorporate that all into a final report. So I'm just going to present some of these initial results that we found coming out of the surveys. So we looked also, we firstly asked for about a number of climate-related plans per provinces, and we can see these vary throughout the provinces, with Mpumalanga and Western Cape showing to have the most. We may not have captured all of them at this point, but this is what we have at the moment, where with the other provinces having so between 2 and 4 types of related plans. These plans are very variable. The climate change response strategies obviously are most common throughout the different provinces. And then there are, and also integrated waste management plans and air quality management plans seem to come up throughout the provinces. But there's also adaptation strategies, spatial development frameworks, infrastructure master plans, renewable energy strategies, green economy strategies. So these are just some of the strategies that were highlighted by the various different provinces. As I say, we will continue to get some input from the various provinces to make sure that we've incorporated all the activities here. But this is what we have so far. Looking at the greenhouse gas inventory development and improvement process in the various different provinces, we just had a look at which provinces have developed inventories and which ones need support. So it looks, Gauteng is in the process of completing their inventory, and Mpumalanga has one in 2018. Northwest recently completed one as part of the climate change strategy. Western Cape completed one in 2022 for the year 2018. KwaZulu-Natal did one in 2021. The Eastern Cape has not yet got a full inventory. Northern Cape seem to start but not implement an inventory. Free State 2012, and Limpopo also recently completed. So it seems a couple of provinces have completed an inventory as part of the climate change strategies that they've been developing. So we can see from the slide that there are some needs for updating, and some provinces have already plans in the future to continue to update their inventory. So this just provides us with some information on which provinces may need support in terms of greenhouse gas inventory development. And it's also noted from the survey that there is no formal institutional arrangements in any of the provinces for developing inventories, and it seems mostly to be due to lack of resources and capacity. Looking at various tools, there is a variety of different tools. The City Inventory Reporting and Information System is what Gauteng is currently using at the moment. This tool is a tool that goes with the Global Protocol for Community Scale Greenhouse Gas Inventories. And when we provide training next week on inventory development, we will also be using explaining the use of this tool, so that provinces can understand how to use the tool as it goes along with the GBC guidelines. But as you can see, there's various different states and various different tools used in the different provinces. I think what is important to note is the main challenges with inventory development, as this really indicates where we can provide support. I think the most common between the provinces are really a lack of resources, and also difficulties with data and data collection challenges, lack of data or insufficient disaggregation of data. So those seem to be the main challenges that are common throughout the provinces. And in some cases it's data accessibility, particularly when it comes to the industry side, and then also capacity building and training was highlighted as a challenge, and also to some degree institutional arrangements, that there's no particular unit for coordinating these activities. So this also makes it challenging for provinces to develop their greenhouse gas inventories. Provinces with emission reduction targets, we can see that there are several that have targets. I think it was mentioned earlier that some of these targets were set quite a long time ago, and it's not always clear exactly where these targets were coming from. But hopefully, as we progress through the project and as inventories get updated, that these can be updated as we go forward. We also asked provinces regarding types of actions that they have or they're planning to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. We got quite a long list in some provinces. Most of them are in the process of being developed or are highlighted in climate change strategies, and so we'll be developing. I think this is not, in some cases, a complete list. Particularly from Western Cape indicated there were quite a number of other projects, but this just gives a sort of vision of the type of actions that are being considered in the various different provinces. And these are important when we start to look at the climate action aggregation tool, because this is really about having actions and tracking the implementation. And so this gives us insight into which provinces may be at a more advanced stage in terms of setting up and implementing actions. And then the tool can assist those provinces in tracking the reductions by those actions. The main challenges found in setting emission reduction targets, this was also resource constraints always seems to come up. So I think this is really the biggest issue throughout all the provinces. It seems to always come up, particularly in terms of personnel, insufficient number of people to conduct inventories and target setting and coordinating all of these activities. And in terms of this, there is also highlighted a need for capacity building on how to set emission targets. There were a couple of other points. Inventory data, obviously we need data in order to set targets, and need to understand how to assess mitigation potentials. And there's also I think we've also highlighted in some of the earlier presentations the difficulties with setting provincial targets versus national targets, and some of these actions to achieve the reductions are sitting outside the control of the province. And so these are maybe some of the issues that need to be discussed as we go through the project, and also to get buy-in from stakeholders to really implement and implement these reduction targets. MRV systems, which of the provinces have MRV systems? We see that in Mpumalanga, Western Cape and KZN indicate that they have MRV systems in place, and the others not. I think Gauteng is busy developing, and so there is still a need to develop systems. I think this is really more around trying to develop inventories before getting to the MRV systems. Various different tools for climate-related data management and mitigation action tracking. So we can see a variety of tools are used through the different provinces, with quite a few provinces not making use of any specific tools at this point. So hopefully we can also assist through this project in providing some guidance on the appropriate tools that can be implemented. Main challenges again for implementing MRV systems, as I say, resources comes up again, lack of institutional arrangements and lack of integrated data collection and reporting approaches. And this, speaks to reporting fatigue, because everybody is requiring input for similar systems, similar types of data, and it needs to be coordinated so that we're not asking people to report and upload information for various different activities. So I think this also kind of speaks to the importance of setting up institutional arrangements and a flow of process to coordinate the various different activities and systems within the provinces. In terms of stakeholder and experts assisting provinces, again, we can see there is quite a wide variety of support for the various different provinces. There's support from international stakeholders, from a national government, provincial and municipal levels. In some cases, support from industries and private sector, and a few provinces which are lacking support. So hopefully we can provide some initial support to these provinces. So just looking overall in terms of the province's capacity building priorities in terms of the activities related to this ICAT project, which are really around capacity for inventory development, for target setting, and for tracking actions. Here we have listed if it's the first priority, it's a 1, second priority 2, and third priority 3. So we can see that still there are several provinces that are still focusing focusing on priorities to set up, develop their inventory. And as we've seen in a number of presentations this morning, that this is really the first step to the process. Without the inventory, it's hard to set targets and track actions. So it is important that this project assist these provinces to guide them in setting up and developing their inventories. And then we can see, though, that some of the provinces have already developed inventories, and so they are then moving on to their priorities are shifting towards target setting and then also to tracking the various actions. So what we're doing through this situational analysis is looking at how we can focus the training and capacity building activities that we have towards those provinces that need those want to have the priority for those particular training capacities. So we'll try to assist and go to the provinces that need the training, that particular training. It is difficult because we're trying to cover all the provinces in quite a short space of time. So we do have to select where we think the activities and the capacity building needs are greatest. So in terms of as I say, we've used some of this information. We'll use some of this information to develop the actual approaches for capacity building and what the timelines are. We have developed an initial plan. It's a draft plan based on obviously the timelines. We need to try to stick within the timeframes set out in the terms of reference and deliverables that we have as to when the main activities and trainings will occur. But the approaches may vary depending on the needs and the focus in the various different provinces. So we have put together some of our initial thoughts on the training activities. I'm going to say that this is, as I say, a draft, and maybe this is a space where we can get information and feedback from the various different provinces as to whether these approaches are suitable or whether they have some input on how they're best seeing some of these activities approaches. So we certainly welcome inputs at the end of this if provinces have some input which we consider to develop this training schedule as we go forward. The potential dates, please, I know they look very specific, but they are just put there in terms of we have to consider that we got to get quite a lot of work done in the next couple of months. And so these dates are all very tentative, but I find that sometimes it helps to plan ahead and at least put some information on the table so that it starts a point from which discussions can occur. So firstly, we have Inception workshop, which is obviously today, so we don't need to go into that any further. And we've been in contact with a lot of you already regarding the inventory training, which will be taking place next week. I also wanted to say that initially the plan was to select certain provinces and provide them each province with the different training, either the inventory training or the target setting training, but it seems that there is quite a need from all of the provinces. And so what we have done is try to adapt a hybrid approach throughout so that it does make all the trainings available to all the provinces should they want to participate. So the hybrid version is where we have we have budget to accommodate a limited number of people, but then we will in all cases have virtual components so that all the provinces can dial in should they also want to attend those sessions. So yeah, so what we aim to do with the inventory training, which is next week, we all the provinces were invited to join in to the in-person training to have some people, and then of course it's open to additional people virtually. That will be happening in Johannesburg, as I say, next week. So that one will take place next week. Then once we have provided the training, we will also then follow this up with provide additional support over the next 2 or 3 months to the provinces regarding around inventory training. So our support will be, I guess, through meetings and virtual sessions as need be. So I really want to say to provinces that this is really your opportunity to get involved and to ask questions, and we will be happy to provide support, but we do need the engagement from your side. The more questions you ask and the more involvement you have, the more you will get out of this capacity building program. So as I say, so for each step with the inventory, the subnational tool and the target setting, we'll have some initial training processes, but then we will also be around to provide support over the next 2 to 3 months to assist you in getting up your inventories going or to use the various different tools and implement it that way. So please do try to be involved and engaging to maximize your gains from this capacity building exercise. So as part of the inventory training, we also will have a short 1-day session on institutional arrangements and data collection procedures, as well as quality assurance and quality control procedures. Our thoughts on these was that we would maybe go to one of the provinces, particularly one of the provinces that need assistance in terms of inventories, and do the presentation in that province. So then once we are in the province, we can also then provide some in-person engagement around inventory training to that province, because I think just having everything virtual doesn't always get the message across, whereas in person it can be quite valuable. So the idea would be to go and present those from one of the other provinces, but have all provinces dial in. So this is our thought with the institutional arrangements and the QA/QC procedures as part of the inventory training process. The National State Actors Guide and Climate Action Tool, there will be training provided firstly for at the national department level, and then we feel this one has been provided suggested to be provided to selected provinces, because the tool requires quite a lot of information in terms of detailed information in terms of your actions and your monitoring and your data. And so this may be targeted more at the provinces that are further down the line and are ready to have actions and to track actions. And so the thought was to select out 4 provinces for this training. The tool is, it's felt that a smaller session of 20 people with 2 provinces at a time allows for better engagement and for more questions to be asked with these smaller groups. And so the way we've structured it at the moment is our thoughts are to have smaller groups and have sessions where it's half days over a few days. So it gives people time in between the sessions to maybe do some of the activities, to try out the tool, and you come back to the next session and ask some questions and get some feedback. So it's much more sort of interactive in terms of implementing the tools. Also, the reason for focusing maybe on smaller groups here is that we can try to, as Samuel was saying, use some of the provincial information already gathered as input into the tool to make it more specific for that particular province. Then there will be an awareness webinar series, which we'll put together, which will just really be have a whole lot of invited speakers around climate change activities, implementing strategies, various different topics. And it will just be open to anyone who wants to join in those sessions to gather information. And so that would just be a virtual webinar series during that time. So that would be sort of timeframes of June. And then this will be followed by emission target setting, as I say, again, training, and then followed by support after that as well. And this mission target setting will follow a similar process where we have a training in one for a day in one of the provinces, and then but have virtual participation by all other provinces as well. And then finally, there'll be a project validation workshop, which would be also in hybrid, and hopefully all provinces will participate during that activity. So as I say, this plan is what we have so far, but we do welcome inputs for us to consider, and it is quite a lot to get through between now and October, and also considering and understanding that there are constraints within provinces. And I think that the more in advance we can plan these activities, the better it is, because our people can make sure that they are available for these various different activities. So yeah, so I welcome any inputs on this plan. And as I say, I really do encourage to the provinces to ask questions and to be involved and get back to us and to get the most out of these training activities. Okay, thanks. That's presentation for now.
Thank you so much, Martin and Luann. I'd like to hand over the chairing responsibility from the DFFE side to Mr. Mabena, as I'm leaving now to join my next meeting.
Okay.
Mr. Mabena.
Okay, no, thank you. Okay, no, thank you very much, Ms. Mashele. Well, thank you very much, Luann, for this helpful presentation. Anyway, before Ms. Mashele gave me chairmanship of this meeting, I just wanted to ask two questions to get clarity on. The first one is on the, I think it's helpful, the implementation plan or the schedule rather. In terms of the training, in particular on greenhouse gas inventory compilation and to run the aggregation tool, my take is that there will be perhaps hands-on exercises by participants, and then it will be perhaps be helpful to run this tool with actual own data by the participants, if that is the case. And then for that to happen, because these tools are informed by data collection template, there's a template that is used to say these are the parameters to run the tool that you need to run this tool on. So my question is would it not be perhaps helpful that before the training takes place, that you share with participants the template, maybe just to highlight, what type of data is needed to run this tool, so that when the training takes place, at least there's that awareness to say, oh, I'm now able to run this tool even with my own data. The second part is in terms of the outcome of all this effort. Because at the end, we would like everybody to have capacity to run this tool, and apply in own work environment. Now, for us to gauge to what extent we have succeeded in doing that, would it help maybe maybe down the line there at the project validation workshop, that we could perhaps also just include a session where participants can showcase, how they've been able to run the tools. Maybe we give others to run the inventory, others the aggregation tool, something like that, so that people can showcase, these are the tools, and now we can run them even with own data. To me, if we are able to that, then I would definitely say that we have succeeded in terms of this project. Thank you very much. And then I see a hand from Sebeneko. Sebeneko, can you please go ahead?
Thanks, Chair. I'd like to agree on the 2 points that you made. The first one, I fully agree that the actual data and the spreadsheet be shared so that people can acquaint themselves in advance as well. And the last point on the workshop, the last workshop. I have 3 actually or 4 questions. The first one really takes you back a little bit. It relates to the series tool itself. I just wanted to ask, was there any competition between the other tools, or was series the most obvious one, or was there others that were considered as well? Just general, I'm not even advocating for any other one. Coming to the schedule itself, I appreciate the hybrid element. There was interest on our side to attend the training. So we fully appreciated that. And we appreciate the separation of item 3 and 4. The institutional arrangements and the QA processes one. And we volunteer for that day, Gauteng volunteers for that day. I don't even know if I have the power to volunteer, but I'm volunteering anyway. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Sebeneko. Luen, would you like to react to that?
Yeah, thanks. I was going to say I'll react, otherwise I'm going to get lost. Firstly, in terms of the templates and handing them out before and using examples, absolutely. So in all the training that we will do, we will be providing hands-on and examples and exercises that people can actually try it out. We don't want to just be presenting to you and nobody's actually doing anything. We want them to be interactive, and so we will be providing examples, particularly with the climate action tool, as you mentioned, Samuel. We would like to take information from the provinces and then show them how to put it into the tool. So we will use their examples during the training in the tool. And that's why one of the reasons is that we've sort of scaled those trainings down to doing 1 or 2 provinces at the same time instead of all 9 at the same time, because then it can be more focused around the specific needs of the thing. So absolutely, in terms of the templates, as we move forward, we will, particularly with the climate action tool, as I mentioned, it does require quite a lot of information. So we will definitely be speaking to the provinces and providing them with the types of information that would be required, because this would also then really assist us in understanding who would be really ready to be using the tool. And then we can focus the training around those provinces that have the information. I mean, we don't want to overwhelm provinces if they're nowhere near ready and don't have any information, because then it's not really going to be very useful. So we certainly will, before the training, be contacting and providing contacting provinces and providing information on the requirements for that tool. And we will be using the same. Also, just in terms of the inventory training that's coming up next week, I also want to say, if provinces have information or already have inventories and you want to bring it along because you have a particular query, please do that. And we're always happy to sit with you to discuss any issues that you may have. So please take opportunity during particularly the in-person training sessions to ask queries. And so if you bring your information and you want to put them into the examples and tools that we have, we really do encourage that, because it makes it more relevant to you. So that is something that will stand throughout the different training sessions. In terms of having a workshop for provinces to showcase what they've done, I really think that's an excellent idea, Samuel. And I think that would be a really great idea to have each of the provinces, they can select one of the activities that they've done and showcase what they learned and what they produced out of the tool. So I think that will definitely be something that would be good to incorporate towards the end of the project. In terms of Matthew's question about the Cirrus tool, yeah, I mean, maybe we can, you know, open up. The Cirrus tool was just, it's not necessarily better, it's just a tool that is there and follows the actual GPC guidance. We do note that some of the provinces use Excel sheets, so we can also use Excel sheets if that's open. So it might be good to hear from provinces what their thoughts are in terms of, you know, in terms of the tool, the Cirrus tool. I don't know if everybody is aware of the Cirrus tool that goes with the GPC protocols. But yeah, it might be good to hear from provinces if you think that would be useful, or if you prefer just to go with sort of Excel spreadsheet tool training. We can do either way. Yeah, Brett, maybe you want to just come in here.
Yeah, thanks, Luann, and thank you everybody for the input so far. I think one of the advantages of the Cirrus tool, as Luann has indicated, is that it is structured around the GPC. And one of the valuable elements of it is it does aggregate data in such a way that avoids double counting. I mean, the GPC does that, but the Cirrus tool, I guess, formalizes that. And I think one of the values then is it does help double accounting in terms of the desire to aggregate provincial inventories to the national level. So that's a benefit of it. But I agree with Luann, it would be helpful to hear from participants whether there are other options that they would prefer.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for that one. I think. Thank you, Luann, for this helpful presentation and in-depth response. I think, colleagues, now we are on the agenda on the question and answer discussion on the project plan, which we need to reflect, all of us. Gondwana has presented to us the initial project plan, which is in front of our eyes. Now, the question is, what are the next steps to conclude and agree on this project plan? And also, because related to that would be to get clarity on issues around logistics. I know that there will be some of the sessions will be in person sessions, others there will be, you know, visual sessions and hybrid and so forth. But I think we need to provide clarity to participants on for in cases where participants will be participating in person, where they'll need to travel from their respective provinces to the venue of the workshops or meetings. How will that be organized? And then who will be, for example, clarity on logistics in terms of how they'll be supported. Luann, are you able to provide clarity on that one?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so in terms of the in-person and traveling to these capacity building workshops, it'll work in a similar way to what we have for the inventory training next week, where the people that are attending, we have budget to support travel and accommodation for participants attending in person, so that those expenses can be covered under the project. And so whenever we have a capacity building in-person activity, Gondwana will be coordinating that activity. I don't know, Martin, maybe want to add to that, but Gondwana will be in touch with those people that are going to be in person and assist them with all the various different arrangements. And as I said, each each facility will also ensure that there is the ability to connect virtually as well. So yeah, so hopefully that clarifies around the arrangements for the workshops. I mean, I think logistically, Gondwana will provide support. The idea of going to different provinces, I think, is good to have in-person engagement with people. But of course, we will need to have support from the various different provinces if we're going to come. I mean, we will organize the logistics, but we'll need to engage with that particular province as we develop the training if we're going to that particular province. So yeah, hopefully that answers the question.
No, thanks for that feedback, Luan. And then also on the other issue, because I know that other blend dates on the project plan, there are no dates set already as yet, actually. So I think we need to put maybe rather tentative dates and then confirm with participants. So I think maybe we'll need to explain how we'll do that, so that at least that is put on the calendar. sorry. Because of the evolving work, so that people can plan well ahead. So yeah. So I think if we could follow up on that one, that would be help to
I mean,
to update the project.
I agree. I think that perhaps we can circulate to provinces. The idea of sort of having dates up front just gives people time to plan, and also what provinces can indicate if, I don't know, they may be having a particular activity or an event occurring at the same time, and so we don't always know about that. So if there is input on no-go dates, that would also be useful. Martin, I'm wondering if we can share the tentative plan and get feedback from provinces. I don't know your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, Luan. We can do that.
Okay.
So I mean, we will be giving participants feedback on today's workshop in the form of sharing links to the recording of this workshop, also the presentations, and in that as well, we'll start to share the proposed workshop plan.
Thank you for that. I see a hand from Andrian. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, and afternoon, colleagues. Adrian Northwest. Yeah, thank you for the project schedule. I think from our province, we already indicated we are unfortunately unavailable for attending the course on the inventory side, but as luckily indicated during the review, we've got like a greenhouse gas inventory that was done by previous consultants. So it's just a matter for us now to take that work forward in terms of the target setting. So just to confirm then, will that target setting workshops then take place June-ish, July, so that I can give proper feedback to the rest of my colleagues? Because I was strictly instructed to tell everyone that we will be participating in the process, but only after the start of the new financial year in the beginning of April. So thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Luan, are you able to clarify the potential date for target setting, to clarify
Yes, yeah, sure. Yes, I think in the schedule it was around, let me just check it. The target setting was going to be around June, July-ish timeframes. As I say, I can send out the schedule. I know that it was a bit more of a rush to get the greenhouse gas inventory training in place, and that's why we want to really, because we know everyone's got quite busy schedule, so we want to give everyone quite advanced warning so that we can maximize participation at these events. And you know, anyone that didn't is not able to attend the greenhouse gas, as I say, we will send out the information and slides anyway related to that. So you can still contact us if you still have any further questions. But yes, the emission target setting is will be around July in the schedule so far, unless we have feedback from others on that. But as I say, I'll send out the schedule to everybody.
Thanks for that feedback, and when I think that is clear. And then Matthews, go ahead, please. See a hand from Matthews.
Thanks. Just a selfish request from our side in Gauteng. Item 3 and item 4 dates, if possible at all, be kept or moved forward, because we're in the process of a project, so we'd like to gain the knowledge in advance as well. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks for that one.
Yeah. So yeah, maybe just send me a note if there's any difficulties, and we'll try to accommodate in the schedule.
Yeah. No, thank you very much. Colleagues, are there any other perhaps reaction on the project plan? What's your feeling on it? What needs to be done going forward? I see no hand. In that case, I think we are now, we have exhausted discussions on the project plan. Now we have to discuss on way forward. I think some of the issues here we have talked to in terms of way forward. One of them is the need to finalize the work plan, which then Gondwana will circulate, and then we agree in consultation with provinces to finalize the work plan. And then that means once that is done, then immediately we need to have specific dates, maybe through Teams invite, so that this reflects on people's calendars, so that they can plan well in advance. And now also the presentations will be shared, so where everybody can access and remind themselves about all these deliberations. And then, well, of course, as Luan has mentioned, next week, first iteration of the training exercise will begin, focusing on inventory. So that is on horizon, and that is on track. So that will happen following this Inception meeting. And then I think those are the core three main issues which I've depicted from the discussions today. If there is any other burning one, please do have a floor to raise it, so that we are all in the limelight in terms of way forward. Luan, would you perhaps also highlight some, maybe beyond to what I've just mentioned, in terms of what will happen following this meeting?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, so as Samuel said, we'll send around all the presentations and the schedule, so that everyone can have a look at the schedule and provide input, so that we can consider that and finalize those, so that everyone has advanced warning around that. As I say, if for some reason anyone can't attend any of the training, it doesn't mean you can't get in touch with us if you have any queries regarding that issue. So please do that. I guess I had one or two questions for the provinces in terms of what we mentioned earlier in terms of the tools for inventory preparation. Does anybody have any thoughts on what tool would be preferred by their province? Matthews, I know that Gauteng used the SARS tool, and maybe you have thoughts on that. Did you find it useful?
Can I come in, Chair?
Yes, go ahead, Matthews. Yes, yeah.
Yes, we tried the series tool, because we were doing it roughly. There was no training or anything. It might have been the challenge, but it seemed to be not very easy to use. We spent a lot of time, a couple of weeks on it, and then we moved on to the IPCC software. But yeah, it could have been just that we didn't have knowledge on how to use it, because sometimes if you don't have the knowledge, you struggle with something that's actually very easy. Hence, we're actually happy with the training for next week to actually see if it was us or actually the tool itself. I hope it helps. Thanks.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Now, any input that anyone has is good. Also interesting to hear that you used the IPC software. So yeah, which is of course is another option. So I don't know if any of the other provinces have used any other specific tools, or if they're just using spreadsheets, and if they have any thoughts on the tool that they're using, whether it's working for them or not.
Colleagues, are there any response to that? I see none.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, meaning, Luan, maybe, yeah, I think, well, this means the plan is fine. So
okay.
that is, yeah. Well, colleagues, I think now at this stage, we are now moving towards the close of this Inception workshop. Maybe before I close, I would like to give a floor to all of you, maybe to raise your comments, recommendations, observations in relation to this project, so that it can be helpful to all of us. If anybody has got a burning issue that he wants to raise, please do so. Is there anybody who wants to recommend anything or observation? I see none. If that is the case, then allow me, colleagues, on behalf of the department, to thank all of you for participating so effectively in this Inception workshop. I would also like to thank our collaborating partners, ICAT and WRI, for having extended this type of support to our country in terms of this project, which we are all looking forward for its successful delivery. Colleagues, I know that you have all, the capacity, all the interest, all the effort that you are putting in this project, is showing that we are going to succeed. In fact, just what Luan has presented on the feedback that he got from you already signals that we are on the right track. Let me thank all of you and wish you a good time the rest of the day. Thank you, colleagues. This workshop is closed. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks very much to everyone's participation. Appreciate the comments.
Thanks, colleagues.
Thank you.
Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you.